Tommy G, how American guns get smuggled into the Mexican cartel. To the Mexican cartel. I do a reaction video.
I do get firearms. I send them across the border, make money for myself, and not other people make money from it. Straight up and discuss how the guns are brought from the United States into Mexico.
Would you say you have a dangerous job?
Yeah, probably the most dangerous you can have. It's literally just the story that away and something that about its life. When I was in jail, I need to put food on the plate. I ended up selling it to somebody who ended up taking it to California and making money off of it, so everybody ate at the end of the day.
2009-10 was like our wild, wild west days out here where we were in chases every day.
And what are the odds someone is eyeing on us right now?
Oh, pretty good, dude, because these are all scout hills.
At what age did you say you officially joined an organization?
So I was about 10, 11 years old.
We spoke to a cartel member last night that alleged that one of the ways it gets through is paying off Border Patrol, paying off police.
Yeah, I would not disagree with that.
What is the cost to buy a Border Patrol agent?
$100.
In a good month, how many guns can you get across the border?
I want to say close to about. Yes, it fairness.
Fuck you mean we paranoid? Hell yeah, nigga. We got all these guns in this bitch and somebody randomly knocking. You know who it is, nigga? What are you talking about?
These paramilitary crime syndicates.
Bruh, it's crazy.
They are heavily armed, deeply connected, and absolutely ruthless. Specializing in drug trafficking, human smuggling, extortion, and more, these organizations pull in billions of dollars every year. And the United States plays a part in this because the ugly truth behind some of their power is American guns. Now, as Americans, we get mad about the fentanyl flooding across our border. But what about our guns that are flooding into Mexico? In this episode, we expose the pipeline. From cartel operators to U.S. gun smugglers running thousands of firearms across the border to the law enforcement agents fighting to stem the flow. These folks are the players in this deadly supply chain of power and violence. And would you believe that some of our own three-letter agencies might be involved? This is the story of how American guns end up in the hands of Mexican cartels. Good to meet you. Is it true that there are people in the game are on the run right now?
Oh yeah, most of the people I know just either their people either got hit by one of the three people that are going after raiding people, or just had some shit happen, or some people didn't know how to hit. And they gotta go on the run. So Mexico's just a go-to right now. States like two hot state troopers, Border Patrol up in Phoenix.
So do you have a fear that if you did a bad business transaction that someone would come looking for you?
I don't fear for my life at all in this situation because throughout this whole business I've been clean business. I see myself as what is just normal, civilian that's out here just trying to make money. So you're gonna have the gun itself, where the gun is, who's the one that's either going to get it or who has it. I go buy that off that person at a price where I can make a profit for myself. Or I send someone into a store to go get something from me, and I have my people that I sell it to at a pretty good markup. They send it to one of their kind of workers, drivers, who just gets taken out of Mexico in like units.
So you don't physically drive across the border?
No.
Hey, he's smart.
Would you say you have a dangerous job?
Yeah, probably the most dangerous you can have. Because you're not just dealing with, legal issues, you're also dealing with territorial issues.
For those not familiar, the Sinaloa cartel is one of Mexico's most feared and notorious drug cartels. It was led for years by El Chapo Guzman, a ruthless kingpin famous for running a global crime empire and escaping a Mexican prison in 2015 through a mile-long tunnel. He was recaptured in 2016 and extradited to the United States, where he's now being held in ADX Florence, America's most secure prison. He's locked up alongside people like infamous gang leader Larry Hoover and the Boston Marathon bomber. And with El Chapo behind bars, Sinaloa's future has never looked more uncertain. But make no mistake that from Chicago to California, Omaha to Phoenix, the Sinaloa reach is still quite powerful. Alright folks, we have a sheriff pulling up from Pinal County. He's had a lot of experience in the field. We're going to be interviewing him as well. You have the wildest collection of patches that I think I've ever seen. If we interviewed a cartel member last night, what are the odds that he would be Sinaloa given the control they have in the area?
If he's not Sinaloa, then he's risking his life.
What's your process to do it?
Damn.
Just storing it away and sending it about its way.
And are you physically driving it in a car, or do you have other people do that?
No, there's a chain of command. There's people that do that. You can go into a gun store right now and buy, your typical mini-me, something like that for $9 grand. But if it falls out the back of the truck, I can get it for $5.
Do you work for one primary cartel, or do you freelance amongst many?
Just one.
Is there any difference in how difficult it is to do business from the Biden administration to the Trump administration?
There might be a couple hiccups, but it's all business. It's all the same. Honestly, it's crazy. I can't imagine going right now. People are scared to go cross money for the risk and the paranoia of it, Because some of this shit is like go load your car up with 20 gloves. And imagine trying to drive across the border, thinking that, and then you fetch yours and they pick you up, shit like that. It's nerve-wracking, once the border got tighter, things got harder to get into.
Driving 20 Glocks across the border is mean.
Biden's president?
I feel like there's a lot more things coming in.
Is it noticeably more difficult now that Trump is in office?
Under the Biden administration, it was a free flow of everything. The people have stopped coming across so much. I mean, we're way down. I think we were at about 7,000 to 12,000 a week, and we're at 300 to 700 a week now.
At what age did you say you officially joined an organization?
It's all about 10, 11.
You might know Harbor Freight for affordability. What you might not know, performance and
Music paradise.
There was a study done by the U.S. government from the Government Accountability Office that found that 70% of firearms found in Mexico traced their roots to America. Does that surprise you?
Probably low volume.
Yeah, it might even be closer to 80, 90.
For sure. If anything, I feel like that would be a larger number.
Closer to 80, 90% maybe?
Probably closer to 90.
How much power do the cartels have in places like this in Arizona?
On the American side, they're very smart businessmen, right? They don't, they're getting a little more overt about their stuff, but you just don't have a lot of in-your-face like you do in Mexico, right? We don't have rolling gun battles here. Sinaloa holds pretty good control of our state. They have not given it up, and they've been there a lot of years.
Are there people in America that are
Damn,
part of a cartel?
basically Phoenix police just said, we scared of the cartel. The fuck?
Now, according to Arizona law, these gun smugglers could face up to 10 years in prison if caught for the crime. But what's interesting to me is the same U.S. government that will hammer these guys for selling guns also like to sell a lot of guns overseas themselves. This has happened a lot of times in recent history, but let's just highlight a couple of recent examples. Take the Soviet-Afghani conflict in the 1980s. The CIA funneled tens of thousands of guns to the Afghan fighters, the Mujahideen, to win the battle against the dreaded Soviets, our enemy at the time. Fast forward a few years later, the same Mujahideen fighters that we armed with the guns that we gave them, some of these guys later turned into the Taliban, which is really good for the military-industrial complex because this fueled another 20 years of war and profit. And most recently for the United States politicians and arms manufacturers, we have sent billions to Ukraine and Israel, which some could say the U.S. taxpayer is indirectly responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of people, including women and children. So while a low-level smuggler might spend a decade behind bars for moving a few rifles across the border, the corporations and politicians who benefit from this arms dealing will walk free. Because when the violence is industrialized, it's no longer a crime. It's just good business. Is there any misrepresentation of the American
Well said, Tommy G.
about the cartels?
Well said.
Like, basically that they're horrifying terrorist organizations organizations. Yeah.
It's not how they picture it, though. It's so media, it's so brainwashed, and they say, oh, the cartel, it's so runs this whole area, and if you go there, they're gonna kill you, and this and that. Yeah, the cartel might run a specific area, but as long as you get there, you're not causing no trouble, or you're not out there to steal from nobody, or just sell anything, you know what I mean? If you're just there on good terms and like checking in, everything be good.
Do you think that's a fair picture American media makes of it?
No, it's easy to label something that you can tax. We gotta take care of our own people, you know? The government ain't helping. You see cartels sending, you know, sidebars of people in the United States to do mass shootings and get their agenda across everything. You know, most of the things that cartels do, unless it's someone in America who's working with them and fucking over somehow, that's when they'll go after you as a person in America.
What do you think about Trump potentially labeling cartels as terrorist organizations?
Then he should start here with the people on the side.
What do you think would happen if Trump tried invading Mexico or drone striking cartel operations?
That's not what we do.
Currently in the news, the U.S. and the Trump administration is considering using drone strikes against the Mexican cartels. But how do we know if these stories are biased, how they're being framed politically, if we're getting the right scoop on what we're being told? This is where the sponsor of today's video comes in, Ground News. What they do is they pull thousands of stories across the internet and compile them, and they...
The Italian mafia. They are very family oriented. I can tell you from the Mexican side of my family. We have family gatherings all the time. We have carne asadas. We get together and play loteria and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And the difference being when they go to work, it could be to go skin somebody alive that's their enemy, you know. This road in particular is a major smuggling route, and I've had a lot of chases on this route.
And what road are we on right now?
We're on Stanfield Road. These mountaintops will have scouts on them. So all of these valleys out here can have routes where they are pushing people and product up. And they use those routes, the scouts guide the loads. When they get up here to kind of the civilization, that's when they'll hit these regular routes, blacktop routes, on the freeway, shoot up into Phoenix, because Phoenix becomes the hub.
And what are the odds someone is eyeing on us right now?
Oh, pretty good, dude, because these are all scout hills.
Why is torture used so often amongst the cartels?
Pain is the best teacher.
Let's talk salary.
Great. What do you typically offer for this role?
It's competitive.
And if it was a number, it would be...
So you're a runner, go to a gun store, get it, let's say it's me. If I get flagged, okay, that's a mission that went astray. If not, how often would you send a guy like me to get it again and again and again?
I mean, I've had people that, you know, you wouldn't believe the number of stuff they've had out under their name. It's really kind of strategic in a way. Because the way the background checks work is they will show up as, you know, either a pistol or a rifle. It doesn't go into the system as that specific firearm unless the ATF is flagged involved. You can have someone go store to store, get 5 pounds in their name, just one day, clean record, all that stuff.
Are you someone in your family that has died from gun violence in Mexico?
Yeah.
Do you blame the guys in America selling the guns?
I don't. I just blame the shooter, really.
How do you feel about being involved in a business that arms the cartel?
It sounds worse than it is in a way. I mean, you think about it is, what I'm doing is basically doing what larger corporate companies have done with other third world countries. You know, Taliban has all guns made in the USA. What I do is I still make those people money. You know, the big corporate, big gun industry still gets money from me, but I also make some money myself in a way by just doing what they're already doing, but on a smaller scale. Even if I stopped what I was doing, someone would just come and fill in for me. Might as well try to make more money in that way. It's something that's happening in a whole different country.
So gun smugglers will risk prison time for a few $1,000s of profit a month. But what about the big players in what some would call the military-industrial complex? Let's just look at the Russia-Ukraine war, for example. Lockheed Martin's stock hit an all-time high. Raytheon's production lines are going off the charts. Billions of dollars in weapons have flowed across the Ukraine border and across the European nations that are gearing up, looking to refill their arsenal in what has proven to be one of the biggest spending sprees in defense since the Cold War. Now this is where the gray area comes in. Is this right? Is this wrong? Because whether you look at Ukraine, Israel, Afghanistan, one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. I don't know the answer to all this, but what I do know as a tax-paying citizen is what I've gotten out of the deal are dead soldiers, civilians, destruction, a bad reputation globally, while these companies in the military-industrial complex have reaped the profits in the billions.
it's true.
Well, I don't think the gun manufacturers make the guns to give to bad guys to, like, pillage and carnage their own countries. So I don't think that's a good way of looking at it.
What made you choose this job over anything else you could have done?
Honestly, the thrill of it, in a way, just a large interest in guns. On my part, the money's there. I got lucky with, finding some people. Honestly, I think this is a lot morally acceptable than drugs, safer than drugs. Less corrupt, less dangerous,
When I was in jail, I needed to put food on the plate. And then once people started offering me guns for product, being like tremendously like no product, where it was like damn near getting a gun for free, that's really what changed my eye, because of some kid who went and robbed the car and found this in the gun in the car, and he was scared to have it at home. So he came to me and he said he didn't want that. He'd rather have a little bit of weed.
How much weed do you think you gave him?
Probably like 7 grams. And like that same night, I ended up sending it to somebody who ended up taking it to California and making money off of it. So everybody ate on that at the end of the day.
2009, 10 was like our Wild Wild West days.
Sold a gun for 7 grams? 7 grams? So basically, you just got a gun for $50. Really, $40. That's
We're
crazy.
in chases every day, load vehicles, stolen vehicles going south. So they would go to Phoenix. They could have a stolen vehicle out of West Phoenix down here within about 40 minutes. And so they would run stolen south. They would cross them over because there's parts of the border just south of us that are just barbed wire fence like this. So they would cut that shit, drive across, and drive the stolen into Mexico, load it up with dope, and then drive it back northbound under the dark of night. And so we would be out here in night chases with them, going after blacked out vehicles, chasing them through the desert, trying to get them before they got to I-8. The scouts would all coordinate their movement. So we would have counter scout operations where us and Border Patrol would work together to try and take the scouts off the hills when we knew loads were coming, so that they were flying blind essentially. And then under the last presidential administration, it was so wide open that they didn't need any of that stuff. Nobody was stopping them. So, and there were so many of them that there was just a flood of people coming through, a flood of dope coming through. Border Patrol was tasked out in all these other areas. It was like thermopylae for us, man. I mean, we were up against, tens of thousands of people, and it's really not even our job, right? The immigration piece is not the sheriff's job, but we were stuck with a lot of this stuff. Our military was essentially teaching other countries how to defend their country, right? And
Guys, we got to cover some more cartel history, because American guns are not the only thing that the United States has contributed towards the rise and dominance of Mexican cartels. Let's take you back to the mid-90s to Fort Benning, Georgia at the School of Americas, where for decades and still today, this was a place where Latin American military forces were brought to practice skills in things like urban warfare, interrogation tactics, and psychological warfare. The School of Americas has since been renamed due to many former students committing various coups and human rights violations across Central and South America. Classes here are taught in Spanish and oftentimes led by U.S. Green Berets. One of the groups that was trained here was GAFE, one of Mexico's elite special forces groups whose job it was to raid high-value targets and combat narcotics operations. In the 90s, about 30 of the GAFE guys eventually defected from the Mexican military to work for the Gulf Cartel, which they later left to create their own in one of the most feared cartels of all time, Los Zetas. Now, the majority of scholars agree that this was not some CIA psyop on purpose, but rather an unintended consequence on the part of the United States. However, there are known cases of former special forces guys being put on cartel payroll to teach their soldiers and sicarios advanced tactics. Just food for thought as we look at the history of how some of these cartels came to be. What's been your biggest month in revenue so far?
I think the best run I had is I made 70K in 4 months.
How did that feel?
Amazing. I've never felt that level of accomplishment before in my life.
Have you ever been visited by a 3-letter agency?
Allegedly.
How is that?
Pressuring, in a way. One of the things you want to do with that is you want to have them talk to you. Doing that, I was able to find out, in a way, what they knew about me. Where also I reflected where I went wrong, other factors, and how much they knew.
So you kind of stayed silent and let...
Everyone knows you need a lawyer after a car accident injury. But what if I told you there's a better way? One, it gets you home in 30 seconds without the 40% lawyer fees. Let me show you something that's changing everything. This is the Case Connect compensation calculator. It's powered by Harvard-level AI technology, and it analyzes...
This is the Obama solution here.
So someone could be camping out here and someone's hustling a load.
Yeah, and we've had that happen where there's been people out here either hunting or just camping for a weekend, and they'll have a stolen vehicle in the middle of a chase and run right through their campsite and blasting up here to the interstate to get away from the cops. And so this whole area is kind of, again, just like the other area, all the high points, you're going to have scouts. There's usually scouts on this hill, and there's scouts a little bit deeper in, and they're watching over the valleys.
The cartel member we spoke with last night said that if drone strikes were taken against the cartel, we really escalated against them, there would be a ripple effect where they're going to escalate the violence here and try and... I mean, do you see that as a potential chess move that really results badly for the American citizens?
No. If they just look historically at the U.S., they would understand that that's a really stupid statement to make. I think it was Japan that woke up the dragon, right? I don't think they understand what they're saying. Like, that's fine to say, and there's a lot of machismo in that. Like, hey, if you mess with me, you come after my family, I'll come after your family. That's all fun and good. But when you go to war on the U.S., that's a whole different level of f***ing with us that we're not going to put up with. And I don't think they understand the hate that would come their way if something like that were to happen.
Do you ever have sympathy for some of these guys that like, hey, while I don't agree with what you're doing, I get why you're in your own situation?
Yeah, man. I mean, again, having a wife that's Mexican, there's some of her family that are involved in some of this stuff. I don't hate them. It's family, and they're doing what they think they need to do to get by. And again, it's all circumstantial, man. What you're facing in your life and how you're dealing with it, I definitely have sympathy for that. I don't think it's right for them to do what they're doing to get their money or to get ahead or whatever, but I can't fault them for trying to get ahead and do well for their family.
People, I think, in American media, like, it's almost like these guys are monsters. Like, are these guys just normal people in a way?
Yeah, they're normal guys and gals in the sense that, just like us standing here, we can sit and have a conversation. Now, in the right circumstances, would one of them kill me if they could? Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't get real personal. They're just trying to do their thing, and so it is what it is.
So you would survive on your own from an early age?
Yeah, well, I have my sisters, really, and my sisters helping me hold it down. Once I seen, the pressure put on them, and, it takes a toll on you and me, you know what I'm saying? I'm the youngest of 9. When my mom was locked up and my father passed away, you know what I'm saying? It was really just me and my siblings. And I have my older brothers don't have papers, they're in Mexico, you get me? And one of them already died. So it's just me and my sisters and I have a brother who really be on his own world. So I really had to either step in or step out. Once you get into this, the money's here, this is really what makes you, a little bit. And that extra, especially now in this society where the bills take up everything, all the money you make, every job you have, every dollar you make is gonna go to a bill. You get me? At least now, right here, I'm able to feed my family, pay my bills, and still, go have some fun.
Are a lot of these guys falling off of this?
If we were to catch a group right now, they look like hammered dog shit, man. They just beat up because they've been hiking for 4 or 5 days through the mountains. A lot of times they're drinking a concoction of meth and fentanyl and cocaine, so they're all wired up, not feeling shit. Rattlers and stray bullets will get you every time. So you can see there's kind of a depression here and kind of bushes and stuff like that. You can see how the grass is kind of beat down, which means there's been people in here. And then you'll start seeing the black bottles that's traditionally smuggler trash. They carry the black bottles with water all the way up from Mexico. There's parts in Mexico where they're buying all this stuff. They're buying the camouflage, they're buying the black bottles. Water. They black them out so that they're not shiny, visible. And so you'll see them kind of scattered throughout here. You should start seeing some of the clothing and stuff. So they, by the time they get to this point, they've already been backpacking for 4 or 5 days up from Mexico. Then they get here, and this is kind of their final staging point where they will kind of hang out and wait for a ride to come get them. And so typically speaking, this is where they kind of discard their clothing, discard any trash that they have, and jump in their ride and go. So they'll get in this little cut here, and you can kind of see from the grass pressed down. They'll just get in here, rest, and wait for the ride to come get them. And I mean, we're 10 yards off of Interstate 8, and so car will pull up, give a signal, they'll jump out of this spot, go load into the car real quick, and then they're off and running. One thing they did start doing too is when they know that we are onto them because of the stuff they're leaving behind, they would start collecting it all into a trash bag or whatever, and then they would have one person take it off 100 couple yards away so that it didn't give away their position as much.
Do you have any opinion of the new Mexican president, Scheinbaum? Like, has she changed things at all with how you guys do business?
Money talks.
So it's business as usual in Mexico, officials are being paid off, forces are getting paid off, and business keeps going?
Yep.
How hard is it to bribe a police officer?
Here,
Well, yeah, I guess compare America and Mexico.
that's the same.
You can bribe people here?
Oh yeah.
What percent of cops in border towns in Arizona would you say are in some ways paid off?
At least 3/4.
At least 3/4?
Oh yeah.
And how much does it cost to buy a cop?
It just depends if it's a one-time thing. You know, you throw them a couple grand. And if it's an ongoing thing, you put them on a salary, you give them, you know, 3-4 grand a month.
There's really that many American cops on payroll like that? We spoke with a cartel member last night that alleged that one of the ways it gets through is paying off Border Patrol, paying off police.
Yeah, I would not disagree with that. I know from the years that I've worked that we've had compromised Border Patrol agents, we've had compromised officers, so same thing, they make a lucrative offer to somebody who is not making very much money, and people compromise their integrity for that.
Have you ever had to fire somebody because you caught them doing that?
Yeah, we worked a case when I was working undercover. We had one of our guys that was involved, and we had to work a case on him and ultimately arrested him with the help of the FBI.
Now, I'm going to throw out the number he said, which I think is kind of crazy, but I want your take on it. He said, about 60-70% of the Border Patrol and cops.
He's full of shit. Not on the U.S. side. The Mexico cops are more easily compromised, and on that side, it is the threat of violence. Because way back when, we talked to a compromised Mexico police officer, and he told us it was as simple as this. I was trying to be a good local cop. I was just watching traffic, and I was stopping speeders, and I got blocked in by 2 vehicles, and a guy gets in the passenger side, and he said, hey, you know who I am? And he said, I knew who he was. He was a local cartel boss. And he said, hey, we want you to work for us. All you have to do is not be on this road from these times to these times, right? And the guy said, no, I'm not. I'm an upstanding citizen. I'm not part of your crew, none of that crap. They said, okay, here's a picture of your wife and family, and we have eyes on them right now. And you basically have 60 seconds to make your choice, whether you're with us or against us. And if you're against us, then your family's going to pay the price, right? And so all I had to do was not watch this road and keep my family alive. And so it wasn't much money at all, dude. You're talking a couple grand, and for that particular time, right? We think that he had done it more than that, but you're talking a couple grand is what he had compromised himself for.
I couldn't believe and didn't quite buy the numbers that many U.S. Border Patrol agents or U.S. cops were bought and paid for by the Mexican cartels. So I called another Sinaloa contact of mine to see if he could add some insight on those numbers. Here's what he said. Would you agree with the stat, 60 to 70% of them?
I feel like 80%. What? They either want drugs or money. Some of them don't even have a choice. If you say no to the amount of money, like food, you don't have a choice. You feel me? We control you. I have a couple of them that go pick up my people and pass them over. You feel me? All you have to do is follow instructions.
What is the cost to buy a Border Patrol agent?
A week, 9,500. But remember, some of them would give us a kilo. You know, some of them want some kilo, some of them want some yellow. You feel me? So some of them want money, so some of them drugs.
Even after talking to this guy, I still doubt those numbers. I feel like these guys only come in contact with Border Patrol agents that are corrupted, so in their view, all of them are. But I just can't believe that the majority of Border Patrol agents are bought. I just don't think it's true. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.
What you make in a day here is what you make in a month over there. My brothers live off $150 a month, USD, let that sink in. I could make that in in one cell, you want one transaction, you get there, I could make way more than that in one transaction and send that over right there.
In a good month, how many guns can you get across the border? In a good
I
month?
want to say close to 1,000.
1,000 guns?
Close to 1,000.
The cartel guy we spoke to last night claimed that in a typical month he might be able to get 1,000 guns across the border. Do you think that's credible?
Yeah, that's absolutely credible.
Is it even possible that he's downplaying it?
Probably, yeah, because he's not wanting to get his bosses in trouble.
So you have a few runners daily going. Is it with Border Patrol too? You can buy off Border Patrol?
Oh, definitely.
So like you have to, because obviously you don't just stroll up there and ask, like you have to meet him at a bar, do you have to, like how do you initiate this?
They're sent to train.
What does that mean?
They're sent to the academy.
Tell me about the clashes going on right now. Are things fairly stable or is there a lot of battles happening?
No, right? I mean, there's always going to be, tug of war between powers. It goes through its dormant times. Right now it's active.
The danger he's speaking of refers to the war currently happening within the Sinaloa cartel. Since El Chapo's imprisonment in 2017, the group has splintered, with two main factions now holding power. One is led by El Mayo, a co-founder of Sinaloa and some say El Chapo's equal. The other is Los Chapitos, led by El Chapo's sons, known for being younger, flashier, and more aggressive. Their turf war has triggered waves of violence, including this recent story detailing the deaths of dozens of teens in Mexico. And from what I've heard from sources close to the action, this fighting is not expected to end anytime soon. What attracted you to this lifestyle?
Honestly, the adrenaline.
Is it terrifying working for a cartel?
Stressful, not terrifying.
At a Gartner conference, you have access to a uniquely immersive experience with exhibitors who are all seasoned.
So as long as you follow the rules and kind of do honest business, you're kind of in good standing, there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, you do business as a man.
The one thing I wanted to fact check on to see if you had a perspective on this, Trump's claim that the majority of people coming over are murderers and rapists. In my boots on the ground journalism, I found out most of the people are just looking for a factory job, fast food job. They're not a murderer. Do you feel like that rhetoric was accurate or a little overblown?
I would say that depends on the area, dude. Because like this area right now, we see military-aged males all camoed out, moving up, and those males are all at that right gangster age. And a lot of them, when we jump the groups, they are gang members. So if you're talking this area, absolutely, he's absolutely right. This is Thugville out here, man. It's all gangsters, cartel members, guys that are trying to fly under the radar. You'll have a few good people mixed in with that are really just looking for a better life. The other problem that we saw here in Arizona was a lot of these military-age males, when they got to the border and got across into the U.S., they immediately discarded their passports, any IDs, anything like that. They got rid of them, burned them, whatever they could do with them. Why the hell are you going to get rid of your ID if you're not up to something nefarious?
So it did seem sinister.
Yes, absolutely.
Once you're in this, is it possible to leave, or are you pretty much in it for life?
You can step away. Easiest way to put it, you're a reservist at that point. As long as all your corners are covered, you turn into a reservist. So if you're needed and you're called up, you better show up.
How dangerous is it for you to even do this interview?
I'm risking a lot doing this. But I'm risking my life. Let's just say that.
And folks, for all the readers out there, get this book. I got the link in the description. If you want to learn more about real boots on the ground law enforcement experience, I recommend you get it. Links in the description. The power and legend of the Mexican cartels have long fascinated me, and it's my goal to cover the story in Mexico one day if I can find the right contacts to do this safely. Email me at TommyGMcGee123@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram to reach me if you think this might be you. I also wanted to remind you guys to check out Ground News because I think in this era it is more important than ever to be properly informed and aware of what legitimate news might be or whether it's biased propaganda. And finally, let me know in the comments how you think the gun smugglers compare to the military-industrial complex. I appreciate you guys, thank you for watching, and see you next week.
W Tommy G. W Tommy G. W.